finally got this going. It could have been user error, but I don't think so. I think that there are now controls that if you don't preset, it really gets messy. At least that's the way it looks. It looks like I can push some of these off to the side a little bit. Sorry, I got to adjust all this. That's a little better, right? And then this here, I can move this way a little bit. So well, I guess I should stay here. Okay, let's move this way. You notice I have an easel this time. I'm sorry about all those troubles, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, last night, apparently I wasn't the only one that was not able to get up and running. There were apparently some others. Let me adjust this one more time. There were apparently some others that were having the same difficulty. And I don't know what to blame it on. I really have no idea. I couldn't tell you. I'm going to back this up, actually, so you can see the whole board. All right. We just have to go with that, I guess. I don't know that you can see everything here. I guess you can. All righty. Wow. In the description box below is a link about the celebration that the country is having today, courtesy of President Bidenopoulos, Greece's, as Alex Christoforou says, Greece's favorite Biden. Maybe favorite person, favorite president. I don't know what it is. Something like that. All right. I noticed that the situation with the camera here is still a little off. I don't know if you can hear me that well. Apparently, the resolution and the field of view has changed as well. Okay, but I'm not going to mess with that right now. What is the topic today? I have to be careful what I say, obviously, because free speech no longer exists in the United States, especially if you call out evil these days. If you call out evil for what it is, you get censored because they don't want you to talk about that. So what is the topic today? Look in the description box while I'm talking. You can bring up the link if you want, and you'll see what it's about. I'll ask you this, what did President Biden, so-called President Biden, do for today? What is March 31st today? What has he declared it to be? I'm going to go ahead and bring this closer and change it around a little bit because they've done, again, I'm sorry about all the adjustments and everything, but they have really changed the way this works. So the subject matter is basically that our country is gone straight to demon land and it's continuing unabated. So that's the subject matter. Yes, that's right, Sheila Davis, that's right. Those of you who don't want to have scriptural stuff, there are people that say, the Bible's nonsense, and in a lot of ways, I understand your point of view. Okay, I do. I've done a lot of study on this thing. I understand all the different ramifications, arguments, proofs, etc. And there are a lot of problems with it, even though people don't want to admit that. Okay? Looks like this is going to be useless. It's too low. This is really too bad. Let me see if I can bring this up enough that you can see it. I don't know if it'll work. Again, I apologize for all these. It's just the resolution on that is not, or the field of view is just not what it should be. So let's see if I can do this. Oh, yeah. No, this won't open up. So this is all kind of ridiculous. I can't even make it work. All right, I'm going to just toss this aside. It's just not working. get back to the table here. Sorry about this. You all know about this? Okay, I won't keep this up. All right, I'll toss that aside. I'm going to put this up here so you can see it, I hope. It'll be about the right height. Yeah, that works lots better. All right. Okay. Again, sorry I have to do all these adjustments. Last night they didn't want a lot of us up there talking, and apparently, like I said, the thing is working odd today. Okay, I've wasted enough of your time. So people have put up there what President Biden has declared. You can't call out evil anymore because it's considered hate speech if you do. Therefore, I have to talk in very veiled terms. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, I'm sorry. Number one on my list today to discuss, I have it up in the top corner there, left-hand corner of the whiteboard. I got a call yesterday from a very nice lady. It went to voicemail, so I didn't actually talk to her personally, but she basically said to me, "Roy, I've been listening to you for 10 years, and I know you're a very passionate guy, and I know that you're trying to emphasize things, but could you please watch your language because there's mixed audiences out here that are listening to you." And by that, I'm sure she meant women and children. And I understand where she's coming from, and I imagine she's watching this, and I want to say thank you. But I have to explain something to you, okay? And that is that if you want me to be real, I mean, I appreciate you asking me to watch it. I don't really like using four-letter words. Sometimes it just comes out. You gotta remember, I was a cop and an Army officer, okay? So every once in a while, when I am really trying to emphasize or I'm frustrated, I'm probably going to use a word that you don't like. I would love to promise you that I won't do it again, but I can't promise you that. Because as you know, and another thing she says, "I know you have a good enough vocabulary that you could use other words." Yeah, that's true, but you know what? They just don't do the same thing. So I will try to behave myself, all right? But I can't promise you that if things get like this whole thing with YouTube, this came close, okay? Because I consider these things to be done with an agenda, okay? But probably adding more surveillance stuff into the system, yeah, into the algorithm and all that. But all I'll say is I'll try to choose better words. But remember, I can't make a promise because if I lose my temper, I'll probably let loose again. Okay? So no promises, but I'll do the best I can. All right? Okay. So Genesis 19:26. Now, if you think this is only a religious discussion, you're sadly mistaken. I could go through some historical information to show where we're headed. If we fail to learn the lessons of the past, we're doomed to repeat them in the future. And I could do that, but there would be arguments on and on and on and on. Okay? So what am I accomplishing? There's a division going on in the land right now, and the respect for life and the natural order of creation there is no respect for it. Well, there is, but it's losing ground quickly because of the people that are in power pushing these nefarious and destructive ideologies. And we knew that they were going to do this to us eventually. Back when I was in first grade, well, it was actually probably third grade or so, there was a magazine called High Point or something like that. Now I've forgotten the name of it. But I remember there was an article, it was for elementary school kids. And they were saying that, there would come a time when there would be subversion in our country. Police officers would be killed in mass, and then the radical elements, and I'm talking in between the lines here, highlight. Oh man, Samantha Enriquez, very good. Yeah, highlights. That's exactly right. Thank you. And some other people know it too. That tells you, that tells me what the age range of my audience is here, right? All right. Anyway, the subversion that would happen. Of course, we've heard that from former Soviet KGB agents, and I want to make the point here right now. The Russia today is not the Soviet Union of the 90s on back into the first part of the 1900s. It's not the same country. The people have grown out of that, and they didn't really want it in the first place. There are some things that were good about it, but of course it did a lot of bad things. But one of the things that we knew is that ideology, which didn't really originate in Russia, it originated in New York, all right, and Washington, D.C., to subvert other countries. We knew that it would be turned on us, and it has been, but it's been the idea of the frog in the pot, not throwing him in boiling water because he'll jump out, but in turning it up slowly. And that's where we are now, to the point that we're even being told that we have to accept ridiculous ideologies and deny the natural order and the natural state, especially the male-female relationship, which is, again, what I have been concentrating on for a long time. Patriot Nurse gave a good thing the other day about nurturing women. Go listen to that. I noticed that there are people out there now that are coming up and they can't do it on YouTube, and I'm being very circumspect about what I say here, but there are people that are talking about it now in detail. And I would have put it in the description box, those responses to this horrible thing that's going on, but they would probably take down my channel just for posting it. Okay, so I've got to be careful. Where do I want to go to emphasize my concern for this? What can I say that will say what I want to say, but not say it? So stick with me here if you can. Yeah, I don't agree. I don't disagree with anything most of you are saying. You know, yeah. And I didn't bring my glasses. Let me get to it, okay? I'm telling you that back 4 decades ago, it'll be 4 decades ago in 2026, I wrote a book called, it was after my situation where they persecuted me for my family choices, where I decided to honor the women I was with and the children that they bore me, okay? Not toss them out on the street and forget about them. The system destroyed the family and caused the women to have problems. Oh yeah, but it wasn't me. It was what the system did to attack me. And I hear all these people like the shooter the other day whining and moaning and groaning about what they're going, that they can't not only cut themselves to pieces, read between the lines, but bring other children along and cut them to pieces. And I said, in a book that I wrote, I mean, I knew I could see what was happening as early as 1982. But by 1986, I wrote a book, and it was called An Offender for a Word. It's a quote from a passage in Isaiah. That's not really important. The important thing is that in the book, which is not in print anymore, you can find it online, but they're not cheap. And it's more of a compendium or a pamphlet. I've shown it before. I said in there, I said, with the way things are heading and the rejection of real marriage that has nothing to do with states and governments, but between consenting men and women that make contracts with each other, covenants, that rejection of that is going to end up turning us into a place in the Middle East that turned into sulfur and brimstone. Read between the lines. In the story in Genesis, chapter 19, verse 26. And people will again say, "Oh, this is legendary. Oh, this is just horse manure." The Sumerian texts are being changed by the Hebrews, and it doesn't really apply. I'm going to tell you right now. All you have to do is look around, and it's true. Partially because, as I've said, it's an eternal round. What happened before will happen again. And people want to say, well, it's just cause and effect. And I agree, because those natural order things work that way. But that's not to say that there aren't our progenitors, and I mean in the other worlds possibly, I'll put it that way, who don't have an interest in what happens here. Because I think they do have an interest. People will say, well, your consciousness is a Christ spirit. You're connected to you're the avatar of your real self in another world. Well, okay, I'm not going to argue any of that. I could, but I'm not going to. What I'm going to say is that the stories have merit. In Genesis 19:26, the story is, of course, the two angels came to destroy the cities of those places you're talking about, right? Chapter 19. And the men of the city wanted to take those angels that were obviously male and abuse them. Read between the lines. This was extant in the whole city. It's nothing to do with the relationships between men and women. There are preachers out there that will try to tell you that, but that was not what was going on. As a matter of fact, if you remember, one of the main character of the story, Lot, says, "You men of the city, don't touch these men that are here. They're in my house, therefore I have to protect them. Take my daughters and do with them as you will." And they didn't want that. So it has nothing to do with even what would be considered kinky between men and women. It has nothing to do with that. So what happens is that, Abraham already made a deal with God that if he could find 10 righteous people in the city, he wouldn't destroy it in those two cities. Well, they couldn't find them. Lot and his two daughters were all there were, and Lot's wife. So the angels say, "You're going to have to get out of here. This place is going to hell." Literally. We're going to destroy this place. Now, I could give you all kinds of other interesting aspects to this, but the part I want to concentrate on, because I think we're looking this right down the line. I don't mean to be a purveyor of hellfire and damnation, but this is going to destroy us, what Biden did today, and where this whole thing has been pushed. And it's not by accident. They're hitting us at our core. They're destroying what we were created to be. So they were told not to look back. It was agreed that they could go to this other city, this other town. It would be safe there. Apparently it was over the mountains, where whatever was going to happen would not affect them. So they were on their way to that place. And they were warned not to waste any time, to go as fast as they can. And what was the concern? Don't look back. Don't look back. Don't think you can reason with those people. They're evil to the core. Don't give them any consideration. Don't look back and feel sorry for them, because they were going to kill you. And we're here to save you. And I'm telling you the same thing right now. Well, for whatever reason, Lot's wife looks back. Remember that part of the story? And she apparently, it wasn't just the looking back, she apparently tarried in a place that was still exposed to whatever was going to happen. And the story says that she was changed into a pillar of salt. Well, that's asinine. That's not what it is. And that's been preached for so long, it's absolutely ridiculous. Something else happened there. Just the description of it sounds very much like some type of a nuclear event of some sort. I don't know, and I don't pretend to know. But this is what I do know as far as what the Hebrew says. She was changed into a pillar of salt. Salt in Hebrew, if you look it up in Strong's, is 4417. The word on the Hebrew side, 4417. And it's melak, which is very interesting because it has some correspondences with some other words, which I'm not going to get into. But that's the word, melak. Yeah, it means salt. But more than that, somebody already put up ash. Well, that's not quite right, but it's actually closer than just salt. It means pulverized. It means dissolved. It means powdered. It means disappear as dust. It means vaporized. Now, they didn't use the word vaporized, but that's the concept. Are we starting to see something here? All because of what these people were doing. Not only, apparently, destroying their own seed. I'm talking cryptically here with parable. Destroying their own seed. You figure out what I mean by that. Because if I say it in this, it's going to be a problem for me. The rest of the story is that she was changed into a pillar of salt. Evaporated is another good term, right? What is the word pillar? Okay, so did she really turn into a pillar made totally of salt? The word for pillar is netzib. That's the word that's used. It's word 5333 in Strong's. Go look it up. If you saw any of the film of the aftermath of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you may recall that there were people standing next to buildings and that they were obviously vaporized, but what happened is that a negative of their physical being was etched into the sides of the building. If you haven't seen those, and I'm not going to encourage you to go see it because it's horrible. But what happened is that they blocked enough of the radiation that their image was placed onto walls, even the streets, and they were gone. I think the description of being turned into a pillar of salt, a vaporized, is really saying that her image, once she was pulverized, dissolved, vaporized, disappeared as dust, that her image was then burned onto a rock that she was standing near, because they were actually going through some rocks apparently over this pass to get to the other side where this other city is. Yeah, like X-rayed, almost the same thing. So that's, I think, what we're looking at. When you combine all the evil and the wickedness that these current ideologies that have been around for thousands of years, that are directly opposed to the natural order, okay? I'm not going to say God because people will turn me off if I say that. Opposed to the natural order, the manifest world that you see, which is not created to be evil. It's used for evil by evil people. But you are not, despite everything, are not inherently evil. You just are falling short of the mark. There are exceptions, and Biden's certainly one of them. When people say, well, you can't judge Biden, right? Oh, yes, I can. The trick is that you don't judge him in a way that you would not want to be judged. You're not told to love everybody. You're told to love your neighbor, because you don't know what the other guy's doing. But you treat them the best way that you can. And then if they turn and rend you, then you've identified who they are. And he has turned and rent us and is linking up with people that seek your destruction and the destruction of your children and of your spouse and your relationship. As a matter of fact, they want to just cut out your organs. So I wanted to point this out today without saying what I really want to say. I'll just kind of leave it at that. This was kind of what I was going to do last night, and whatever they were doing, fouling this whole thing up and then blocking us, whatever was happening, and I'm sorry about that. And then I had that problem here today when I'm trying to put it back together. I'm going to leave that other one up, by the way, that I did before this, just so people are aware that there's some difficulties going on in case this happens again. Okay? I think it's about 4 minutes. I'll let it go too long. This is important because apparently the weapons that did this are very similar to whatever happened in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And the problem that we have today is that these aren't just individuals that have gone along this particular path for whatever reason, and I'm not going to try to articulate what those reasons might be. They're confused. They have a dystopia because when they were growing up, they didn't really get instructed on how to mature into what they were really created to be. Whatever the case is, I don't have a problem with those people. I have a problem with powerful institutions, including government, promulgating that and pushing it down everybody's throat under pain of criminal charges if you don't. And that's what we've got. We've got government sponsored degeneracy that's being pushed, not recognize that it exists. And I'm not even saying you have to accept it. That's not a good idea either. You can accept the person and feel sorry for them, which I would do, but you don't have to accept what it is. Hell, there are people in the world today that accept that lifestyle before they'll accept what I did with real women bringing real kids into the world. Do you not see how evil this is and what the end game is? That's the end game. And I'm not saying I was righteous by the way I did it. I floundered. Just, like I said about my Army career, I wasn't the fantastic Army officer you see, like Robert Duvall in Apocalypse Now, that kind of thing. I was lackluster. The point was I was there. Pardon me a minute. Also, my effort to do what I did, I wasn't the best at. But I got to admit, when you have, I almost slipped. When you have powerful institutions like the Mormon Church, the state of Utah, and the federal government breathing down your neck and causing you trouble everywhere they can, you're going to flounder. You're going to have some difficulties. They're going to get in there and they're going to break apart your relationships, which they did. And I've explained that before. You think they're going to do that to these degenerates that are running around saying that if you don't accept their lifestyle, they're going to shoot you? No. The government will assist them. And what Biden did today is proof of that. You better be on guard. What happened in that city that this is in regards to was promulgated and protected by the ruling class, by the politicians, by the church leaders. That's where we are today. Another side of this is, of course, no matter what happens, the powers that be succeed because any division that they can cause and to distract you from what they are doing enables them to continue what they're doing. However, this is what they're doing, okay? It's not just like the banking system and the crash of the banks or the wars or anything. All of that is the actual distraction. This is the end game, to destroy the relationship between men and women, to confuse that natural order, because even the U.S. military did this, but the way you destroy an insect colony is you infect them with things that destroy their reproductive capability. And why do I hold Christians partially responsible for all this nonsense? Because they held sex in a bad light for so long, they've totally incorrectly defined it. It's still better than some of the alternatives, don't misunderstand me. So, not only are we killing our seed off, and I'm sure they were there in this place too, read between the lines. But just as concerning to these beings was this disruption of the male-female relationship and the burning of lust of one man for another. I don't know how this will be accomplished, but I don't think it's too far off. Especially when you have the government celebrating this thing, pushing it down your throats, making it a point of a national day of celebration. They add to the soul of our nation. Do we really want a soul like that, or is it even such a thing? I can't see the chat. Sorry, I had to keep the phone too far away. I guess since I'm not using the easel, I could go ahead and pull this up closer. Maybe I can see it a little better. Well, Biden had a soul. He lost it a long time ago. And I shouldn't judge him, but you judge him by their fruits and what he's done. Not just on this, but on everything else. And all of them are dirty. Highlight 2.0 is, what? 2.0 is drunk. Yeah. Today's kids are taught if it feels good, do it. Oh, that's not even the issue. They're taught that they're not boys and girls. So when you say that all this world is created by this evil demiurge, you're really saying that the supreme God is helpless, ignorant, doesn't really know what's going on. Yeah, they want to destroy God's image. People will tell you, well, God is just this feeling that you have inside, this Christ consciousness. They want to keep it in the realm of the untouchable. I'm not saying that the conscious, having a good conscience, isn't important, isn't the big part of it. But when you remove yourself from your lineage, you no longer know your origins. Therefore, you can be told any wind of doctrine and believe it. There was a show not too long ago, I can't remember the name of it now, but the guy said, you know, if you believe anything, if you believe nothing, you'll believe anything. Something like that. God is not sitting on his throne wringing his hands? No, of course not. Yeah, that's it, Sheila Doyle. Thank you. If you don't know what you stand for, you'll stand for anything. You'll fall for anything. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. T96, that's right. Uganda stood up for its morals. Trump was standing out there during his campaigns with the LGBTQ flag. And I said, I had family members that argued with me about that. You know, I knew where this was headed. I know enough about history, enough about human nature. I knew where this was going. And I had family members say, no, Dad, that's not true. You know, they're just misguided souls and they're not really going to turn into what we see going on today. That's why I wrote in my title here, Tragic and Nauseating Vindication, that I was right even 40 years ago and said that this day was coming. And I'm trying not to see this day come. But I have no power to stop it. So it's tragic and it's nauseating to me. If you're not watching what these people are posting on social media, and the people I'm talking about, you should know. I shouldn't even call them people, but I will. If you're not keeping track of what they're posting, you're really doing yourself a disservice. It's hard to look at, I understand, but you have to know your enemy. And Biden says, God bless you to them. How dare, talk about blasphemy. Talking about using, that's not God's name, but the principle, using it in vain. How far have we fallen? And who's calling this asshole in the White House out? And all the people that are backing him up, including the FBI and the CIA, the intelligence communities, the banks. I walk into malls now, and this stuff is in your face because there's so many of them that they've pushed down that road that they now market to them wholesale, almost to the exclusion of the normal men and women, the normal boys and girls. Or they push it so that it looks so attractive that then those who are trying to understand their maturation process are influenced by it. I hope you found this interesting. I won't waste any more of your time today. So she didn't get turned into a salt pillar. She was vaporized, and her image was like a negative burnt into a rock, probably. That would make a lot of sense. Because we've seen that in the modern world, in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and even in a lot of the atomic and nuclear tests through the years. So if that portends what's coming, wow. Nations like Russia and Uganda that have repudiated this evil wickedness, wicked evilness, I can't even describe it any stronger, will probably survive in one way or another. Again, those of you who don't want to give God the credit, cause and effect, the universe helps things progress the way its natural order tens. Canada, US, Britain, the EU, Australia, New Zealand. Kim.com came out yesterday, maybe it was early this morning, and said, you people in the United States, you better get out. You better go to South America. You better find another country to go to. Well, I don't think he's saying that because the government's going to turn on the, not only because the government is turning on its decent people, but because this might actually occur. Our military is incompetent. They're fighting the last war of 60 years ago. And unfortunately, there are wars that we have engineered. We're not a nation of peace. We're not a nation of Christian values, prima facie. Not saying there aren't those type of people here, but they're not the ones in control. Thomas Massey, for instance, Rand Paul, they come close. Laura Boebert, there are a few others. Some things that happened lately, I wonder, and I talked about Josh Hawley the other day and his push on this, particularly the TikTok bill, but apparently he's linking that, whether he knows it or not, and I'm sure he does, to the restrict bill as well. So I could continue on in my lamentation here, but I wanted to give you this information so that you can take it and run with it according to your own interests. And I've already gone for 45 minutes. Be careful. Basically what Biden and the FBI and the Department of Justice and all these other organizations, even at the state and county level, city levels, they basically said, it's open season on you. Open season on you. If you abide by your creation and the natural order, they've said that it's okay for these people to hunt you down. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground, situational awareness on high. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. Defend yourselves, but don't go looking for trouble, even though a lot of the things that are happening right now probably would deserve some action, but don't fall for that. Gather with like-minded people and try to head yourselves up for the inevitable result that this is going to bring about. Maybe I got this thing working. I don't know why I had so much trouble. I apologize. Out here for now. Take care.